Sophia Turner often felt like she was living in a fairy tale. Her husband, Daniel, was admired by everyone, charming in public, brilliant in his career, and endlessly attentive when he chose to be. They lived in a stunning house on the hill, the kind that made neighbors pause to admire the blooming roses by the gate. Their story seemed perfect, especially now that Sophia was expecting their first child after years of hoping. Every morning, she would wake with a hand resting on her growing belly, smiling at the thought of the family they were about to become. She poured her heart into preparing the nursery, choosing soft cream tones and tiny stars that glowed faintly in the dark. Yet, in the middle of that peace, a shadow began to creep in. Daniel started coming home late, his once warm voice turning clipped and distant. He brushed off her concern with a quick kiss and excuses about work pressure. Sophia tried to believe him. She told herself every marriage had its rough days. But one night as she hugged him, the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume clung to his shirt, floral, sharp, and undeniably feminine. Her heart skipped. For the first time, her perfect world trembled. It started innocently enough, or so Daniel told himself. Late nights at the firm, shared drinks after meetings, and conversations that felt thrillingly different from the quiet life he had at home. Vanessa Cole was everything Sophia wasn't. Loud, bold, unapologetically ambitious. She knew how to make Daniel feel powerful, feeding his ego with sweet lies and seductive glances. What began as stolen moments soon turned into a full-fledged affair, hidden behind hotel doors and secret phone calls. Vanessa reveled in the danger of it all, her eyes glinting with triumph every time Daniel chose her over going home to his wife. When she discovered Sophia was pregnant, she threw her head back and laughed. "Do you really think a baby will keep you tied to her forever?" she mocked, tracing her manicured nails along his arm. That night marked the beginning of her true manipulation. She filled Daniel's mind with doubts, saying Sophia was too emotional, too dependent, too ordinary for a man like him. Slowly, her words took root. He began pulling away, answering Sophia's calls less, finding excuses to stay out longer. Sophia's closest friends noticed the change and tried to speak gently to her, warning that something wasn't right. But Sophia, desperate to protect her marriage, refused to believe them. "He's just under pressure," she said softly. Yet deep down in the quiet hours of night, her heart whispered a fear she couldn't silence, that she was already losing him. It was a quiet Sunday evening when Sophia's phone began buzzing relentlessly. At first, she ignored it, thinking it was just another reminder from her pregnancy app. But when she finally looked, her screen was flooded with messages. Friends, colleagues, even distant relatives sending her the same thing, a photo of Daniel and Vanessa. There they were, walking hand in hand into a 5-star hotel, smiling like a couple in love. The headline read, "Prominent attorney Daniel Turner seen with mystery woman, not his wife." Her vision blurred as she scrolled through dozens of images, each one more painful than the last. Within hours, the story exploded across every social platform. Sophia's name trended alongside mocking hashtags. News anchors speculated on the troubled marriage, and gossip accounts painted her as the clueless wife. When Daniel returned home that night, she confronted him, shaking and tearful. "Tell me it's not true, Daniel. Please." But instead of remorse, he sighed in irritation. "You're overreacting, Sophia. You've been emotional lately. It's the pregnancy." His dismissiveness cut deeper than any confession could have. The next morning, reporters gathered outside her home, shouting questions as she closed the curtains and held her belly protectively. Everywhere she turned, she saw her humiliation replayed. Online, on TV, in whispers from strangers. And as Vanessa posted cryptic captions about finding true love, Sophia realized the betrayal wasn't just private anymore. It was a public spectacle designed to destroy her dignity. Vanessa Cole had tasted fame, and now she craved power. Being the other woman no longer satisfied her. She wanted Daniel entirely. His name, his fortune, his reputation. Every time she saw Sophia's picture in the news, pitted and dignified, Vanessa's jealousy burned hotter. "You're still tied to her," she hissed one evening, pacing Daniel's apartment. You promised me she'd be gone by now. Daniel rubbed his temples, torn between guilt and fear. He knew divorcing Sophia while she was pregnant would destroy his public image, but Vanessa had learned exactly where to strike. With a cold smile, she revealed bank records and emails that hinted at financial irregularities from one of Daniel's biggest cases. If you don't make it official, I'll make sure the world sees this, she warned. Panic took over reason. Within a week, Daniel filed for divorce, allowing Vanessa's hired PR team to shape the story. He claimed Sophia's pregnancy had made her mentally unstable and difficult to live with. Reading the legal papers, Sophia's hands trembled, not from weakness, but from disbelief at how far the man she loved had fallen. Meanwhile, Vanessa posed beside a window, sunlight catching her diamond bracelet, and posted a photo with the caption, "New beginnings always start with the truth." Her followers flooded the comments with praise, unaware of the cruelty behind her smirk. For Sophia, the betrayal was no longer just personal. It had become a carefully orchestrated war for her destruction. The morning of the hearing dawned gray and heavy, as if the skies themselves mourned what Sophia had lost. Cameras flashed the moment she stepped out of the car, her simple navy dress contrasting sharply with the glitz of the courthouse crowd. She held her belly protectively, drawing slow breaths to calm her racing heart. Inside, the air buzzed with murmurs, reporters scribbling notes as they waited for the scandal's next chapter to unfold. Across the room sat Daniel, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his arm resting behind Vanessa's chair. Vanessa was radiant in her arrogance, dressed in sleek white as if mocking purity itself. She leaned close to Daniel and whispered, her laughter slicing through the air. She looks pathetic. I almost feel sorry for her. The words carried, sharp enough for Sophia to hear. Sophia's lawyer, a composed woman named Claire Bennett, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder before rising to speak. With calm precision, Claire laid out photographs, call logs and hotel receipts, undeniable proof of Daniel's affair. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Daniel's attorney retaliated with a smirk, claiming Sophia's pregnancy had caused emotional instability and paranoid behavior. Each word was an insult dressed as concern. Sophia's throat tightened, tears stinging her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Vanessa chuckled softly, her painted lips curling in cruel amusement. Yet, beneath Sophia's silence, a new energy began to stir. Her grief no longer felt like weakness. It was transforming into resolve. As she sat straighter, her gaze no longer wavered. The whispers, the lies, the humiliation, none of it could shake her anymore. For the first time, Sophia realized she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for her child and for the truth. When Vanessa's name was called, she rose gracefully, as though she had been waiting her whole life for this moment. Every step she took toward the witness stand was deliberate, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. The room hushed as she adjusted her sleek hair and gave a practiced smile to the cameras stationed at the back. "Miss Cole," the judge began, "you may proceed." Vanessa clasped her hands, her voice soft and tremulous, the perfect performance of a wronged woman. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she began, lowering her eyes modestly. "Daniel told me he was trapped in a loveless marriage. He said Sophia no longer cared for him, that she used her pregnancy to control him." Gasps rippled through the crowd. She paused dramatically, letting the words hang in the air. Even Daniel shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tightening as though realizing too late how far she was willing to go. Sophia sat still, her fingers trembling slightly, but her lawyer's expression remained calm. When it was time for cross-examination, Claire Bennett approached the stand with quiet authority. "Miss Cole," she began evenly, "you said Daniel told you he was unhappy, correct?" Vanessa nodded confidently. "And yet, 2 months before you claim he wanted to leave, he and Sophia attended a charity gala together, where you were also present." Vanessa blinked. I don't recall." Claire continued smoothly, revealing hotel bills that contradicted Vanessa's timeline, text messages that hinted at manipulation, and small details Vanessa hadn't prepared for. Slowly, her composure cracked. Her once sweet tone sharpened into defensiveness, her answers growing clipped and uncertain. By the end, she forced a smile and lifted her chin high, pretending victory. But as she stepped down, the applause she imagined never came, only whispers of doubt trailing in her wake. When Sophia's name was called, a hush swept through the courtroom. Every camera turned, every whisper stilled. She rose slowly, one hand resting on her swollen belly, the other gripping the edge of the table for support. Her lawyer gave a reassuring nod before Sophia stepped forward and took the oath. The judge's gaze softened slightly as he gestured for her to begin. Her voice, barely above a whisper, trembled at first. "Daniel and I were married for 7 years," she began. "We built a life together, or at least I thought we did. I supported his career, stood by him during his struggles, and believed in him even when no one else did." Her words carried no malice, only heartbreak. She spoke of the nights she stayed awake waiting for him, the dinners that went cold, and the empty side of the bed that once symbolized love but had become a symbol of absence. "I thought the distance between us was just stress," she continued, pausing to steady her breath. "But I was wrong. He wasn't tired from work. He was tired of me." Daniel's head lowered, shame flickering across his features as whispers rippled through the courtroom. Vanessa crossed her legs, rolling her eyes, but no one was looking at her anymore. All attention belonged to the woman on the stand, fragile in appearance yet unbreakable in spirit. Sophia's tone grew steadier with every word. "I'm not here for revenge," she said, meeting the judge's gaze. "I'm here for the truth, for my child. I want my baby to grow up knowing that standing for what's right is never wrong, even when it costs you everything." The silence that followed was profound. Sophia took a deep breath and concluded, her voice calm but firm. "All I ever wanted was respect, something I gave freely but never received back." Her words echoed in the stillness, and for the first time, the crowd saw her not as a victim, but as the embodiment of grace, courage, and quiet power. The judge sat in contemplative silence for several moments. His fingers steepled under his chin as the tension in the courtroom grew heavier by the second. Every person present could feel the weight of what was coming. He had listened to hours of testimonies, the tearful sincerity in Sophia's words, the venom-laced confidence of Vanessa, and the uncomfortable evasions from Daniel. Now, with a measured inhale, he leaned forward and adjusted his glasses, his gaze settling squarely on Vanessa Cole. The room went still. "Miss Cole," he began, his voice calm yet carrying an unmistakable authority. "You've spoken at length about love, honesty, and sacrifice. But I have one question for you." Vanessa straightened her shoulders, her lips curving into a faint, expectant smile. The cameras zoomed in on her flawless face, capturing what she assumed would be her moment of triumph. The judge's next words sliced through the air. "If you claim to love Mr. Turner so deeply, why did you transfer $50,000 from his company account to your personal one 2 weeks before the scandal broke?" The sound of gasps echoed like thunder. Vanessa's smile vanished, her complexion draining to pale ivory. Daniel's eyes widened in disbelief as he turned toward her, his mouth opening but no words coming out. The judge calmly lifted a stack of papers, bank statements Sophia's lawyer had quietly submitted earlier. "We verified the transfer," he continued, flipping through the pages. "Would you like to explain, Miss Cole?" Vanessa swallowed hard, forcing a shaky laugh. That was a gift," she stammered. "Daniel gave it to me out of love." But her voice cracked midway, betraying her panic. The judge arched an eyebrow. "A gift," he repeated coolly. "A gift you withdrew the same day the affair became public. How convenient." He set the papers down and fixed her with a piercing stare. "You weren't in love, Miss Cole. You were in business." Laughter rippled through the courtroom, subdued but unmistakable. Cameras clicked, flashes bouncing off the marble walls. Vanessa sat frozen, her polished composure crumbling as her lies collapsed around her. Daniel buried his face in his hands, the weight of humiliation settling on his shoulders. Across the aisle, Sophia remained silent, her eyes glistening not from vengeance, but relief, quiet, pure, and long overdue. When the judge returned to the bench after a brief recess, a thick silence blanketed the courtroom. Everyone could sense the end approaching, the moment that would decide not only the outcome of the case but the fates of the three people at its center. Sophia sat calmly, her hands resting on her belly, her face pale but serene. Daniel shifted uncomfortably beside his lawyer, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead. Vanessa, though visibly shaken, still tried to maintain a defiant posture, her chin tilted upward in feigned confidence. The judge's voice was firm and clear as he began to read the verdict. After reviewing the evidence presented, he said, "This court finds Mr. Daniel Turner guilty of breach of marital trust and financial misconduct. The prenuptial agreement is hereby declared void due to proven infidelity and manipulation of assets." A wave of murmurs rippled through the room. Sophia closed her eyes, a tear slipping silently down her cheek, not of sorrow but of long-awaited vindication. The court grants Mrs. Sophia Turner full ownership of the marital residence, a substantial financial settlement, and sole custody of her unborn child, the judge continued. Then his gaze turned sharply toward Vanessa. Furthermore, this court orders an investigation into Miss Vanessa Cole's unauthorized transfers and misuse of company funds. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. That was the breaking point. Vanessa shot to her feet, fury distorting her once perfect face. "This is your fault," she screamed at Daniel, her voice cracking. "You promised me everything." Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing, capturing every desperate word. Daniel didn't respond. He simply stared at the floor, defeated. Through the chaos, Sophia rose quietly. She turned to her lawyer and whispered, "Thank you," her tone filled with grace. Then, without a single glance toward the pair who had tried to destroy her, she walked out of the courtroom. Her steps were steady, her head high, and for the first time in months she felt free. By evening, the entire country was talking about the trial. News anchors replayed the footage of the verdict, analyzing every expression, every word. Within hours, social media became a battlefield of opinions, but one message rang louder than the rest. #Justice for Sophia. The hashtag spread like wildfire, flooding timelines with clips of her calm testimony and photos of her leaving the courthouse with quiet grace. People called her the woman who walked through fire and came out shining. Talk shows and morning programs praised her courage, calling her a symbol of dignity in the face of humiliation. Meanwhile, Vanessa's world unraveled. Brands that once begged for her endorsements quickly cut ties, deleting her photos and announcing that they did not condone unethical behavior. Her followers vanished overnight, turning her comment sections into arenas of harsh judgment. Daniel's downfall was no less severe. His law firm, desperate to protect its image, announced his removal from partnership and released a statement condemning his misconduct. Once respected, he was now a cautionary tale of arrogance and betrayal. Sophia watched the news from her quiet living room, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The baby kicked gently, as if sensing her calm. She felt no triumph, only peace, the deep, cleansing peace that comes from truth prevailing. She hadn't sought revenge, only justice, and in doing so, she found her voice again. Her story began to inspire others. Women who had been silenced by shame now found the courage to stand tall, just like Sophia Turner. The months that followed were quiet, filled with healing and gentle hope. The chaos of the past slowly faded, replaced by the soft rhythm of new beginnings. When Sophia finally went into labor, she faced it alone but unafraid. The delivery was long and exhausting, yet when the cry of her newborn filled the room, all the pain dissolved into tears of joy. She looked down at her tiny daughter, wrapped in a pink blanket, and felt a love so powerful it steadied her heart. "You'll never have to question your worth," she whispered, pressing a kiss to the baby's forehead. "You'll grow knowing strength, not sorrow." In the months that followed, Sophia poured her energy into something greater, a legal foundation dedicated to helping women wronged in marriage and divorce cases. She named it the light within, symbolizing the courage that had guided her through darkness. Her work quickly gained recognition, helping others reclaim their voices. As for Daniel, he vanished from headlines, his career in ruins. Vanessa was spotted briefly at an airport before disappearing abroad, leaving behind nothing but scandal. Sophia didn't look back. Standing by her daughter's crib, she finally felt whole again, not broken by betrayal, but rebuilt by purpose. The grand hall shimmered with soft golden light as guests mingled at the charity event, a fundraiser hosted by Sophia's foundation. Cameras flashed, and journalists whispered her name with admiration rather than pity. Dressed in an elegant ivory gown, Sophia moved through the crowd with quiet confidence, her daughter's laughter echoing faintly from the corner where a nanny watched over her. When a reporter approached, microphone in hand, and asked gently, "Mrs. Turner, after everything you've endured, what kept you strong?" The room fell silent, waiting for her response. Sophia paused, her eyes soft but certain. "Some people think power comes from control or attention," she said, her voice calm and steady. "But real power comes from knowing your truth, even when the world tries to silence you." The simplicity of her words carried a weight that lingered in the air long after she finished speaking. The next morning, her quote spread across social media, shared by thousands who saw in her story a reflection of courage and grace. News outlets called it the Turner lesson, a reminder that dignity can triumph over cruelty. And as Sophia watched her daughter play by the window that evening, she smiled, knowing her greatest victory was not revenge, but peace.